Writer Wallace Stegner once called America's national parks the best idea we ever had. This special long play video is our testament to why. From shipwrecks to ancient human footprints, from Earth's mightiest trees to its rarest and most fragile creatures, the wonders within our national parks are boundless. Every park has a secret. Here are a few we discovered together.
In 2009, we found what we first thought were human footprints.
We can definitively say that human beings were present here at White Sands during the last glacial maximum, and that is far older than they have been confirmed anywhere else in North or South America. That's hugely significant.
The shimmering dunes of White Sands National Park in southern New Mexico harbor an extraordinary secret. Fossilized human footprints that suggest human presence in the Americas as much as 10,000 years earlier than previously believed. How did these footprints in the sand manage to survive for so long? How long before they're erased for good? And why is their discovery changing everything we thought we knew about human history in the region?
White Sands is the largest gypsum sand dune in the world. We have the San Andreas and then also the Sacramento mountain range. The first prints found in the basin were in 1931 of a giant ground sloth, and at that time they thought they were Bigfoot. In 2005 and 2006, this whole lake, everywhere you look, it was full of water. And even the dunes flooded. And as we were walking along the shore, we started seeing mammoth and camel prints are popping out. And then right over here is a human foot. So there's a heel and the toes up over here. There's a child's print right here, the heel and the toes. And I was walking along the old lake bed and I found these amazing mammoth prints, and right next to them were these incredible elongated prints. And they're both made of clay, but there's no clay anywhere else. When I first seen them, you look at them, is that possible? Is that really what I'm seeing? Is this a human walking next to a mammoth?
Many Native Americans say, well, we've been here forever. And the archaeologists have said, well, no, you haven't. But suddenly we're pushing them back 10,000 years, 8,000 years further into the past than most archaeologists were willing to agree.
I reached out to a lot of experts, and it took many years to confirm that there were human and megafauna together. At first, there was a strong pushback. No, you don't have human footprints. And so it wasn't until 2016 or 2017, January, where we were brushing out these incredible giant ground sloth footprints. And then we seen the sloth on top of the human footprints and then the human on top of the sloth. And it's, whoa, it's real. We finally have the evidence to show that they're walking together.
It's probably, arguably, the most important archaeological site in the Americas that's been found in a couple of decades. This is important and this is interesting because we want to know how long people have been in the Americas. That's part of the global human story, the global expansion of humans.
Here's the palm and then the fingers, and then again the palm and the fingers and the knees, and then more fingers, hands, so it looks like they were crawling.
The most exciting thing about this site is the interaction of humans and animals. So that's ancient humans of whatever age interacting with extinct Ice Age megafauna, things like mammoth, giant ground sloth, camel.
They show you interactions of people walking along with the megafauna. You see children jumping in mud, or you'll see a mother picking up a child and walking with it, or someone going after a giant ground sloth and it stands up and spins it around and leaves claw marks on the ground. The person starts walking backwards, another person running from a different direction. One of my favorite prints we have is actually the mother carrying the child, and there's one spot where she slips, and at the exact same spot you see a giant ground sloth slips right there too, and it catches itself with its tail. It's so funny.
A long time ago, we believed that the animals and us communicated, that maybe they didn't necessarily talk, but that's how we believe. but we all have this interconnectedness. And when we see this panel in the mud, it tells a story of that. Like my people have always said, and other tribes have said, we have always been here. And I hope that this will substantiate that claim in a way.
So it was commonly thought by a lot of the academic community that the people were here between 12 and 14,000 is sort of the accepted range. And so our prints are pushing that back almost 10,000 years earlier than that. We've been able to confirm the prints are 23,000 years before present. And what's exciting is the dates they've been confirming themselves over and over from different labs throughout the country. We've been able to date some of the seeds and then many pollen layers over and over. These ice age pluvial lake systems that are now modern day playas, dry lake beds. They do a really excellent job, and it looks like it's that layering, wet and dry and wet and dry. And now we're starting to look into the stratigraphy, and you can see 2 or 3 meters and 17, 18 layers over and over and over and over and over again. That it just confirms, young dates up here, and then they get older. I think the other sort of misconception is one small spot, and no, it's across 80,000 acres. We have thousands and thousands of fossil footprints. Now I would say we can go out every day of the week probably and find hundreds of prints, new prints. And in some places we do get big flash floods and just washing out a tremendous amount of sediment, and we're losing prints at the edge of the lake bed. The other thing that's happening in different areas, you see large drying events. In some places, over 2 or 3 months, you might have 2 inches, 3 inches of sediment, and it's just blowing away. They're gone forever.
Ultimately, we concluded that it's pretty tough to preserve this stuff. We can document it, but it's eroding. So we've kind of retooled our efforts towards documentation rather than trying to preserve things, because that's just fighting against nature at this point.
I think, at the heart of all of us, we're the same. Children, everybody, if there's a puddle, he'll jump in the mud and play in the mud, or, you'll pick up your child and you'll be carrying it. You know what it feels like. And that's the thing. It's a footprint, but you understand it. There's a close connection because we all leave footprints, I guess, behind. The stories they tell are timeless, and they're rapidly being lost. I think that's, one of the big needs to document them as quickly as we can.
Beneath this calm expanse lies a legacy of destruction. Known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic, this single area contains over 5,000 shipwrecks. Each one a stark reminder of the ocean's immense power. Among them is the wreckage of a ship that sank in 1718. Its captain was the English pirate Blackbeard, another victim of one of the most perilous coastlines in the Western Hemisphere.
This is the Outer Banks, a chain of barrier islands stretching hundreds of miles along North Carolina's Atlantic coast. And this is a shipwreck. Remains of ships like this one, whatever it is, are a haunting testament to the power of the sea. The Outer Banks is a living landscape. The dynamically changing coastlines that unearthed this shipwreck also make this one of the most destructive places on Earth, not just for ships, but for those who still live here today. Just like the great ships of the sea before them, these tides now threaten roads, oceanfront homes, the existence of entire communities. But what is it about this little spot on the Atlantic that makes it so dangerous? And could our changing planet make these waters even more dangerous? I'm passing over Oregon Inlet. It's named for a ship that narrowly escaped a powerful hurricane back in 1846. That superstorm tore through this barrier island, literally ripping it in two. This inlet, like the rest of the Outer Banks, is constantly shifting. These moving sands create treacherous navigational conditions and require constant dredging. It's these rapidly changing features that make this coastline so dangerous.
These morphing shallows of sand and sediment are known as shoals. Shoals form underwater as waves and currents slow down, lose energy, and deposit sediment on the sea floor. While shoals are a defining feature of the Outer Banks, they aren't all bad. They provide critical habitats for marine life like fish, crabs, and migratory birds. They act as nurseries for juvenile species and support complex food webs. And they act as buffers between the Atlantic Ocean and the mainland by absorbing the brunt of storms and sea level rise. The gentle slope of the Outer Banks continental shelf creates an ideal environment for shoals as sand is pushed from deeper waters up onto the shelf. Wave and tidal action move sand in and out of these shallow areas, redistributing sediment and often elongating shoals into ridges or bars. Adding to this mix is the warm, fast-moving Gulf Stream current that converges with the cold Labrador current off of Cape Hatteras. This blends to create heavy turbulence and fluctuating water flow, depositing even more sediment. This perfect storm of hydrology is what makes the Outer Banks so unpredictable and dangerous for navigation. These forces are powerful enough to create entirely new islands, and then destroy them. Shelly Island sprang up suddenly in 2017. At its peak size, it stretched over 1.5 kilometers in length and over 150 meters in width. After Hurricane Maria in late 2017, the island greatly diminished in size, and in less than a year, it had vanished like a ghost back into the depths of the graveyard of the Atlantic as so many ships did before it.
Maritime history in this area goes back centuries. Since the 1600s, sailors have used these waterways for fishing, trade, whaling, even warfare. I'm on my way to meet up with a friend who knows a lot about this stuff. The maritime historian, an archaeologist, and host of PBS's Rogue History, Joel Cook.
Not far from here, in Beaufort Inlet, Blackbeard and his crew, his 2 ships, are trying to evade the authorities. They tend to sail smaller ships that have shallower drafts so they don't have to be in as deep water. And the Navy ships that are heavy battleships can't access these places where pirates can. And the shifting sands of North Carolina help them escape. This ship that is known as the Terror of the Seas, it's a legend and it already at this time period for Blackbeard. The Queen Anne's Revenge ends up running aground in Beaufort Inlet, and he's forced to abandon it and some of its crew as well. The ship itself stays there until it's found in 1996 by a team of investigators.
The Outer Banks have long been infamous for their ties to piracy, but that's just a fraction of their shipwreck history. These waters have swallowed everything from Spanish galleons to Civil War ironclads and World War II freighters. To dive deeper into this incredible history, Joel and I head to the Graveyard of the Atlantic Museum.
How does this coastal region compare in terms of the number of shipwrecks to other places in the world?
It really doesn't. You have a count of shipwrecks that starts here in 1526. And from that time period until now, you have 5,000 shipwrecks in this little piece of North Carolina.
So this is just on a completely different level from other coastal points in the world.
It's unbelievable. The USS Monitor, which is known as the first successful American ironclad, it wins a battle against the Confederate Merrimack, and it sinks close to here because of the conditions in this area. At the tail end of World War I, the German Navy begins contributing to the Graveyard of the Atlantic with their infamous U-boats. And the German Navy takes advantage of this by stationing U-boats around Cape Hatteras at a point that ends up being known as Torpedo Alley. What they're able to do is use the lighting from the coastline in order to attack vessels because they can see the silhouettes of these ships using that light from the coastline. These attacks continue into World War II. And though the US is aware of the German U-boats, they're not able to stop the onslaught of attacks on these convoys moving up and down the coast of North Carolina.
How much do you think is still out there waiting to be uncovered that we just don't even know about?
I think there's tons. If you consider those conditions haven't changed. You know, the weather's still rough here, the oceans are still rough here. So it's hard for people like me and other archaeologists to get out there and find every little thing. Even in the sand dunes here where we have shipwrecks that are on shore, people find new stuff every year. You know, the sand dunes move, new shipwrecks are uncovered, others...
Just a shipwreck that nobody knew about, just emerging from the sand.
Absolutely.
Wow. But while this coast remains treacherous even to experienced sea captains and continues to claim ships to this day, there is a new danger, one that we have to view from above.
From the air, the Outer Banks is just a fragile sliver of land next to an endless sea. You can see the scars left by storms, the shifting inlets, the way the island bends and reshapes itself at the mercy of the ocean. The shifting coastline doesn't impact just seafarers. The towns and beachfront homes that dot this picturesque coast are now threatened by the same forces.
These are homes literally being swallowed by the sea. When these elevated houses were built, they were protected by stretches of dry sand and by dunes. But a combination of wind and waves and tides have brought the sea literally to their doorstep.
When waves and currents approach the shoreline at an angle, sand and sediment are pushed up the beach in a zigzag pattern called longshore drift. Over many years, this process can move entire beaches, putting homes in danger of literally falling into the sea. Over the past 4 years, at least 17 homes have collapsed into the waves.
Since officials have been monitoring this area, this coastline has eroded by 10 to 15 feet per year. And who knows, weeks, months from now, these houses will be reclaimed by the ocean. This coastline has always been unstable and flood prone, but climate change threatens to make it even more treacherous. Storms and hurricanes that are more severe, along with rising sea levels, will have a major impact for the communities in the Outer Banks, in some places threatening their very existence. Is it only a matter of time before these barrier islands become consumed by the sea? Possibly.
The shifting nature of the Outer Banks makes the land and sea difficult to predict. Climate change and the effect that humans are having on our oceans and atmosphere only makes those challenges harder to deal with.
Change is a constant on the Outer Banks. Humans have sometimes failed to navigate that change, and the disastrous consequences are still visible beneath the waters as a warning sign to future generations. But today, as our actions change the planet as a whole, the survival of the communities and ecosystems that call this coastline home, that'll require more than just steering through the shifting sands.
Petrified Forest National Park preserves an important period in time, about 220 million years ago. An interesting time period because it's actually bracketed by 2 mass extinctions.
Petrified Forest National Park is probably one of the most underappreciated national parks in this part of the United States.
We really do have one of the largest concentrations of petrified wood here at the park, where you can really study how animals and plants change over time.
In places like Petrified Forest, where climate change is preserved as a record in the rock, we have a standard that we can use to compare against changes that we're actually observing around us today.
Petrified Forest National Park is a time capsule filled with ancient trees that have crystallized over millions of years, essentially turning to stone. What secrets do these fossilized ecosystems reveal about the prehistoric past? And how can they help predict the future of life on Earth?
Petrified Forest National Park is one of the most complete records of the end Triassic in the world. It is a really interesting area to study how species were recovering from a mass extinction and diversifying, and then dealing with challenges in the future.
There's no better place to see late Triassic rocks exposed in such completeness and in such glory. At the start of the Triassic period, the area that we now call Arizona was on the leading edge of a supercontinent that we call Pangaea. This diagram here is what geologists call a stratigraphic column, and it is a graphic representation of the sequence of rocks that's exposed here at Petrified Forest National Park. Most of this is the Chin-Lee Formation, which is the upper Triassic, and all of the fossils that are associated with it, the magnificent Badlands topography that you get where these rocks are exposed at the surface.
Over 200 million years ago, this was a lush, tropical floodplain where massive trees thrived along rivers. When those trees fell and were buried under layers of sediment, groundwater rich in silica from volcanic ash seeped in, gradually replacing the wood with crystals of quartz, preserving the stunning logs we see today.
There's a similar process for how the wood is petrified to how the fossils are fossilized as well. So this is a trail that kind of winds through a bunch of these huge petrified logs that we have here.
Part of the permineralization process is certainly helped by abundant silica, and the volcanic ash is full of silica. We see a lot of evidence of volcanism in volcanic ashes in some of the rocks, and we see pebbles and cobbles, just little round pieces of rock that eroded out of those volcanoes, and we can see those here.
These plants and animals would die, become buried in water and sediment, and fossilized. They'd all be preserved together, kind of giving us a picture of the entire ecosystem. In order to find fossils, you need a certain set of conditions. So you need rocks of the right age, and you also need them to be exposed at the surface. Areas like Petrified Forest really are ideal to look for fossils, being in this desert landscape with badlands and monsoon rains and cycles that really bring in a lot of erosion. They're constantly exposing new fossils, constantly exposing new things that we can find.
The Triassic period ends where it does is because that is a time that's marked by a major mass extinction event. And the proximate cause of that mass extinction is said to be climate change. The climate change was probably triggered by atmospheric changes, carbon dioxide pulses that were brought about by the breakup of supercontinent Pangaea and the eruption of unusually large volumes of magma as lava at the surface, bringing with it these gases.
Various lines of evidence, including isotopes, tell us that conditions were getting warmer and drier over the course of the Triassic. And so it is a good area to kind of study how animals are responding to these climate events. We do see an extinction event at the end where only certain animals make it through. Species that are more specialized typically have a harder time during extinction events if they have a really specific environment that they live in or a specific food source.
What we're seeing today is much faster, much different from what nature has done, and we really can only attribute it to the activity of human beings. It's through burning of fossil fuels, manufacture of cement, deforestation, and so on. What we find is that what's going on now is happening at a markedly greater rate than anything that we can discern in the geologic record, except for the very brief catastrophic events that have happened, like meteorite impacts, for example.
Animals that are tied to specific environments might have a harder time, like animals that are semi-aquatic and need both land and water. The oceans can also struggle through climate events, through ocean acidification. Really kind of just the species that are more generalized will likely be able to adapt more, and we'll start seeing specialists disappearing first.
If climate change that we see now is a purely natural event, it will be millions and millions of years long past any of our lifetimes, but we're seeing things in our lifetimes. So we have to use the outdoors, the rocks that we see, the national parks, everywhere that we can go and study rocks and deposits. We can learn from them about what is going on the planet today and what we can think might happen in the future.
There's a lot that we can learn from Earth's history. There's 4.6 billion years of Earth's history. There's so many past time periods, past extinction events that we can look back on and see how these animals did through different types of events and see how life recovered after, and really just is the best tool that we have to kind of make predictions moving forward.
Devil's Hole is one of the worst places to be a fish. It has lethally low dissolved oxygen, critically high temperatures. Nearly any fish that goes into it would die. These pupfish are always at the edge with such a small population in such a limited area.
This fish is found nowhere else in the wild or in nature.
With under 40 pupfish left in the wild, they are possibly the rarest fish on the planet. But how did they end up in such an inhospitable place? And what makes their survival so important?
People will ask, should this fish exist in such an extreme environment? And honestly, I have to ask myself, yeah, I mean, how and why? Is it a pupfish miracle? Devil's Hole is part of Death Valley National Park. Devil's Hole was actually formed by a geological fault, and so that's what opened up. And I like to call this a window into the aquifer, or the groundwater. We don't know how deep it is. Divers have been down to 436 feet and they didn't see a bottom. It becomes a true cave system below 85 feet. It's also considered an extreme environment. So that water you're looking at is 93 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. There's very low oxygen in the water. The shelf doesn't get a lot of sunlight, so that limits the amount of algae that grows. The pupfish, they originally got their name because they acted like puppies. They like chasing each other. They're curious. When we dive to count the fish, they'll come swimming up to you and say, wow, you're a big fish. How long have they been here? Geneticists have estimated between hundreds of years to tens of thousands of years. We started counting the fish actually in 1972. So we used scuba as well as surface counters to estimate the population size. Historically, the highest count is just like 540 fish. In 1966, there was the Endangered Species Preservation Act. And the first species put on that list, Devil's Hole was one of the group of fishes in 1967.
The Devil's Hole pupfish are kind of an odd conundrum because they are able to live in this really, really extreme environment, but at the same time, they're a relatively delicate fish. UNLV found that when the dissolved oxygen goes low, they actually start producing ethanol, and essentially when times get tough, the fish get a little bit drunk, and it helps them to survive a complete lack of oxygen. These are extremophiles, and they're living at the edges of what a fish can survive.
Devil's Hole being so deep in such a large body of water that earthquakes around the world can create these large waves. Now, they are not truly tsunamis. They're actually called seiches. Certain earthquakes, depending on the depth and the magnitude and location, typically around the Ring of Fire, so from Chile, Mexico, up to Alaska, down to Japan, and along that western part of the Pacific, large earthquakes can cause waves up over this boulder here.
This winter, Devil's Hole experienced seiches that were the result of two very poorly timed earthquakes. The effect of this was that sloshing of water back and forth washed all the algae, all the food invertebrates, everything off of the shelf. That caused a food limitation, and the fish began to suffer.
Recently, we're concerned about the population. We went from over 200 fish in September of 2024 to as few as 20 in the end of February.
We're in basically the middle of nowhere in the Mojave Desert, inside Ash Meadows National Wildlife Refuge in Amargosa Valley, Nevada, and we are approximately 1 mile away from where the actual Devil's Hole exists. The Ash Meadows Fish Conservation Facility is designed to maintain a lifeboat population of the Devil's Hole pupfish. So we tried to recreate a really bad ecosystem, essentially, in captivity. We had to figure out a way to collect fish without collecting fish. We did that by collecting eggs that were produced. Initially, we collected during the peak of summer and the dead of winter, when we knew that eggs produced during that time had an extremely low, almost 0% survival rate to adulthood.
We increased the amount and frequency of some frozen food. We targeted some benthic macroinvertebrate food, and for just macroinvertebrates.
We did actually use these fish for the first time in 10 years in their intended purpose as a lifeboat population. We stocked 43 fish over 2 different stocking events into Devil's Hole to help the population, and since then the population has largely stabilized, and we've started to see new babies, eggs being produced, and signs that the population is starting to recover.
So it's encouraging that, this lifeboat actually works.
The fish facility is really playing a big role in both providing the data and the materials to be able to continue to shepherd them to success. There's always a question of why bother? There are a few reasons that I show up for work every day. They've been doing fine in the wild for the last 10,000 years, but since human intervention and human activities in the region have impacted them since the 1950s on, the population has been struggling and has nearly gone extinct at least 3 different times. So I feel like I have kind of a moral obligation that we should also do what we can to try and bring them back. There's lots of other fish in the region that are going to be facing some of the same challenges that the Devil's Hole pupfish does. It's really the canary in the coal mines.
Why are the pupfish important? One, humans develop a lot of our medications from extreme environments. And so we are learning how this vertebrate species lives in warm, low oxygen water. And we still don't know everything about it.
And so these are things that we still have a lot to learn from the fish and from the ecosystem. And if we let it go extinct, so does our opportunity to learn from the fish.
There's something really magical about redwood forests. Hanging out in a tree that is 2,000 years old and kind of stoically standing in one place, you kind of have to experience to be able to explain.
There's 3 things that kill trees. There's bugs, there's fire, and there's disease. And this tree is adapted to fight all 3 of those.
It's the tallest tree in the world. There are species up there that only exist in the canopy, and you don't find them anywhere else in the world.
The size alone makes you feel humble. And I think any time humans can make a connection that makes them feel humble, it fascinates us.
The redwoods predate our existence on this planet by 135 million years. Today, what's left of them can be found on a narrow strip along the northern Pacific coast. These mighty giants survived the age of the dinosaurs. Can they survive us?
We are on the banks of Hashkik-Weroy, the Klamath River. I'm a part of the Yurok tribe. Our home is surrounded by geet, the old-growth redwoods. We've been here as long as they've been here. We respect them because they're living beings. And when they're in canoes, they're part of our family. The story that has been handed down from Yurok people and talks about the redwoods as guardians. They watched out for us as a people.
You come to this forest, you feel the calming presence coming from these ancient giant trees who are just saying, it's okay. We survived for hundreds and thousands of years, and so can you. This is the place the redwoods grow the best and the biggest for two reasons. One, this coastal zone of California along the cold Pacific Ocean gets a lot of rains. It needs a lot of water. You can't grow a big tree without a lot of water. And then the summer, that cold water meets the warm air and creates a lot of fog.
There's physiological complications with pulling water 300 feet up against gravity. The trees snag the fog moisture out of the air. And then the fog water, it can drip down the tree and they can absorb water through their leaves, through their bark. And then they can also absorb water crazily. They make roots in their crowns, like hundreds of feet above the forest floor, that are growing into these crazy wet epiphyte mats and presumably uptaking water.
They're not just a species that takes water like most of our tree species do, but they capture cold water that helps benefit all of our salmonid species and all of our species on the coast and inland as well.
The redwood forest is like a giant superorganism because they interweave their roots and hold each other up like true friends. If one part of their friendship circle is having a little trouble, they actually can send them nutrients and water from another more healthier tree. Being so tall, they're kind of vulnerable, like a skyscraper, to being pushed over in a big windstorm. The only thing that really saves them from falling over is having this interconnected root system. When the wind knocks down a tree, it actually helps the forest, right? It opens up the forest for light to come to the forest floor and help all the other critters and all the other vegetation that needs to grow. So a fallen redwood tree still contributes to the forest for hundreds of years.
Redwood tree had watched humans evolve, and redwood is the one who taught us the lessons of how we're supposed to treat one another.
Every time I get in one of our canoes, you feel that connection. It's a good reminder that our lives are just links in a chain, and we're all connected to one another.
I think the biggest threat to the redwoods today is probably just the fact that there's just so few of them left. And of that old growth that's left, 45% is here within the boundaries of Redwood National and State Parks. And it really is a shame. We have pictures of logging trucks and trains with trunks that we can tell are bigger than the General Sherman tree, which is the current existing biggest tree in the world.
We lost some of those guardian trees. And some of those guardian trees are being regrown right now.
One of the issues with our second growth forests is that they are all one cohort. All the trees are about the same age. You don't have this multi-layered canopy that you would see in old growth. What we're doing is we're coming back in and we're bringing chainsaws back into the forest to thin out these really dense second growth forests that we have here. We're trying to redistribute growth to fewer trees to make those fewer trees more vigorous. So we're standing in an area that has been thinned. They're assessing how well the stand has responded to some of these restoration treatments to see how much diameter growth has occurred.
All right, DBH of Sussy number 26, 18.9.
It grew.
This work is really inspiring because you get to see how much the trees grow in such a short amount of time when they're given the right amount of space and light. And we don't really get to see trees the way they used to grow. So coming back and remeasuring trees really makes us feel like our work is making a difference.
In the future, we are concerned that we could have catastrophic wildfire. So the restoration work we're doing, thinning the second growth forest, is helping reduce the fuel load on the landscape. Hopefully we're giving these trees a chance to protect themselves. Can the redwoods survive? I think they can. They're survivors. They've survived for hundreds of millions of years, and I think they can survive us as well.
We owe it to future generations that they can also experience these forests. We need to protect these forests for science reasons and climate reasons, but also just they're like a treasure on our planet and they're really special.
They've always watched over us. They've always looked to see how we're doing. We're supposed to reciprocate that back to them in the same way that they have cared for us since the beginning of time.
The way I feel when I'm out there is that I'm returning home. It feels like the wind is embracing you. The United States government came to a truce with us. And because they figured that nobody could survive in this vast wilderness, they probably thought we were all going to die. But our people, we were meant to be a part of nature. The other foreigners coming into this land didn't understand the environment and didn't know her secrets. But our people did. That's why we're here today.
Some may see a swamp, others a still body of water. But the Everglades is actually a river, the widest and slowest in the country. A continuous stream of fresh water 100 kilometers wide. It meanders through South Florida at 4 kilometers per day. The Everglades is one of the largest wetlands on the planet. More than 1 million acres filled with plants and animals uniquely adapted to this watery world. For generations, the Miccosukee people have called this home.
Back in the earlier days in the history of Florida, when the U.S. Cavalry, when they were trying to hunt our people down to force relocation, the Everglades provided us a sanctuary. If it wasn't for the Everglades, we wouldn't be here.
One of the secrets to the Miccosukee's survival has been curious patches of elevated land called tree islands.
The Miccosukee people, when they came down into the Everglades, they used the tree islands to live on. The pine trees, they used those trees to build shelter on the islands. We honor those islands by taking care of them and passing on the history of that island to the future generations.
Thousands of tree islands are sprinkled throughout the Everglades. They're some of the only dry places around. They range from the size of a swimming pool up to 1 kilometer long. And there's a growing understanding that they may be the key to conserving this delicate ecosystem. The islands support a surprising array of wildlife: coyotes, deer, bobcat, even the Florida panther. In spite of their importance, little is known about the role these islands play in the ecosystem. Scientists from the Miccosukee tribe are trying to change that.
Prior to our project, there's not really been anything that's known about what wildlife use the islands, how they use them. Even basic information like diet, it's not really known. Using our trail cameras, we're trying to figure out what species of wildlife are also using the island.
Some of the most surprising animals are the black bear. I never thought that the bears would be utilizing the wetland habitat. It's unknown at this time whether the bears are living out here because it's a preferred habitat or because the bear population has expanded so much and is forcing bears out into other habitat. And we're hoping that's what the research will inform us.
We frequently see alligator holes adjacent to the island. A gator hole is a habitat that the alligator uses, and it's typically a natural depression, and they'll start to excavate it to make it a little bit deeper and kind of better for themselves. Tree islands are the source of life and the stability for pretty much all species out here. They kind of all depend on these tree islands to maintain the balance of the ecosystem. Sometimes they have completely different communities of vegetation on them, and that's going to affect what wildlife use those islands. Because the plants are kind of the base of everything. It's their shelter, it's their food.
Percent cover 0 to 4. Certain vegetation will only grow where it has the right niche. Diversity on the tree islands is really important because the greater diversity, the greater amount of food you have for animals.
Some of the vegetation on these islands, like hardwood trees, are particularly sensitive to fluctuations in water levels. Too much water and they drown. Too little and they dry out.
High water is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the duration of the flooding of tree islands that is more of a problem.
People began altering the flow of the water in the Everglades back in the early 1900s when the intent was to try to drain the land for agriculture and for development. They did this by creating a bunch of canals and levees that were kind of diverting the natural flow of water out towards the ocean.
And some areas are too dry, some areas are too flooded, and so you don't get the historic flow that used to occur. Tree islands now get flooded, and they remain flooded for a longer duration, anything from 2 to 6 months.
There are times that we can't use those islands for ceremony. So that impacts the culture of the Miccosukee. There are times that the deers don't have a place to seek refuge because the islands can be up to 3 feet underwater.
The small mammals and the larger mammals just can't survive for that length of time on inundated islands. Small mammals are such an important part of the ecosystem for transporting seeds into different areas. We are reintroducing some of the small animals back onto tree islands.
Certain species of plants on the tree islands cannot tolerate flooding for much more than 10 days a year. The tree islands are essentially drowning.
And the islands itself start dying. The tree roots start dying, and when the trees start dying on the island, the roots of those trees is what holds that island together. So the islands will start shrinking.
Without tree roots to hold onto the soil, the islands erode and slowly disappear. Nearly 70% of the tree islands have disappeared since the 1940s. That's largely due to flooding because of how water flow has been managed.
We have tribal members today that remember living on tree islands and have seen the changes to this area. Even in my short lifetime, I've seen the changes. Our people were taught that in our time of need, the Everglades was here for us. So now that it's her time of need, we have to stand up and protect her because someone has to speak for the voiceless. The Miccosukee people, we advocate for reconnecting the landscape. We need to heal the environment because the way that it's being approached for Everglades restoration is still man trying to control nature. I say you need to get out of nature's way. And when it rains, let the water go where water wants to go, where water historically went. The Everglades is precious. It's the only one in existence on the world. If it disappears, we're not going to have another one. This place is yours. It doesn't just belong to Florida. The Everglades is a part of the world. So everyone has that right to have it protected so that their future generations can experience the Everglades.